Hey guys, my new film, The Smashing Machine, just came out. It's been a great hit. I'm here with Mr. Man Cave Movies. What did you think of the movie? Did you think it was good? Uh, yeah, Rock, thanks for being here. I actually really thought that the movie was... It doesn't matter if you think the movie was good! Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I just got back from seeing the new A24 film, The Smashing Machine, and I definitely have a lot of thoughts about it, so let's get into it. So, The Smashing Machine follows the life of Mark Kerr, who is one of the early pioneers of mixed martial arts, a little bit of time in UFC. Movie kind of follows a lot of his time in Pride, and there's a lot I liked about it. The one thing that everybody's going to be wondering about is how The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, performs in this movie. This has definitely been his sort of show that I can act and not just be The Rock in every movie that I'm in, and for the most part he succeeds. There's definitely some, help that the prosthetics and the hair pieces and that kind of thing lend to you. I used to be in acting, so I can kind of attest to stuff like that really helping you to actually disappear into a role, because if you're seeing somebody else looking back at you in the mirror, it makes it easier to be someone else. Not to take anything away from The Rock, I think he does a really good job. He definitely has this sort of youthful, bashfulness almost to him, where he just enjoys talking to people about what he does and why he does it. And it's such a fun kind of juxtaposition to play with when you have somebody who beats people up for a living, but he's just kind of this affable kind of person. Not to say that there isn't a darkness to him that gets explored. There is, and he really plays off of both sides of that really well. The movie also includes Emily Blunt and Ryan Bader in some pretty good roles. Bader as Coleman and Blunt as his girlfriend, Dawn, I believe is her name. And the character dynamics between all of the characters are very, very solid. There's a lot of scenes in there that just make you go, wow, these guys get it. There was a lot of really poignant moments that really made you kind of think about what you would do, how you would be in the situation that these characters are placed in. And overall, I thought that the acting in the film was great. I don't really have any complaints as far as the acting goes or any of the casting. You also get Bas Rutten in here, which anytime there's an MMA movie, I feel like Bas Rutten just has to be in it, and he's great in pretty much all of those kind of movies that I see him in, so always enjoy seeing Bas Rutten. I also, kind of moving to the cinematography side of things, I really enjoy how most of this movie was filmed. Now, they kind of take the approach of, it almost feels like there's a guy with a camcorder following people around, kind of documenting what's happening, almost as if they're filming a documentary, which I know there's a documentary, I believe the same title, that came out, so I don't know if they were trying to emulate that, or if that's just kind of the style they decided to go with, but I really enjoyed that sort of feeling of we're just watching this unfold, we're not trying to build up this big, cinematic thing. It was just trying to tell this guy's story of Mark Kerr, and I really, really enjoyed how that was approached. I think that it really added a lot to some of the more personal scenes, because it's not trying to do something super, super crazy with the camera work. It's just like, yeah, you're here with this person, and I thought that was really nice. That being said, there are definitely a couple of issues that I had with the movie. The first of which is the fact that they take one chunk of his life and focus on only that chunk, from about 1996 to 2000, I believe. And while I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a focus of the most prominent years, I do think that it's important to include something from a little bit before that, just so we can kind of get a glimpse into what made him the way he is, why he likes to fight, why he maybe ran into issues with substances. Something that gives us a little bit of a, okay, that's why that happened type of thing. Now, I know life doesn't always turn out that way, and I know he's a real person, so you can, do the research on your own. I just think it maybe would have helped the film if there was something like that to to show it, or maybe show the injury that got him, where he had to do painkillers. Just something like that. I also think that later in the movie, they kind of run into the same issue with his later life, where they have this weird scene where I believe it's Mark Kerr. It's either Kerr or Coleman. It doesn't specify. I think it was Kerr. Showing him just grocery shopping while there's some text on the screen saying, hey, this is where these guys ended up. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think that showing us a little bit afterwards, a little bit of the aftermath of how the movie ends, could have been helpful. And just helping us, again, understand this person. And I think the main issue that I'm kind of driving at is because you only get this few-hour chunk, instead of getting to know this character, this person, kind of knowing what makes them tick, you kind of jump in at a halfway point where it's like you meet this person and you know what they're like, but you don't really know entirely who they are. And I think that that's what the issue I ran into a little bit is that you could kind of get a bead on the person as far as how they interact with others, what some of their struggles are, but at the same time, you kind of don't really know what's going on upstairs. Not that you always have to, but I feel like in this kind of piece, it's helpful. Now, one of the other issues I had actually stems back to one of the positives I talked about earlier, and that's the cinematography. Now, when we're in these dramatic scenes, or we're in these personal scenes where we're exploring relationships, or we're exploring him personally, having that kind of fly-on-the-wall camera, handheld camera style is good. It's good. It makes you feel like, okay, I'm there, and I can feel what's going on. But when it comes to the fights in the film, the fights suffer because to keep that consistent style, they're filmed where it feels like you're standing at ringside, or it feels like you're in the corner as the corner man, or stuff like that. And while I think that's interesting for like maybe a change of pace or something like that, when you have like 6-7 fights in the film that all last like around a minute and a half, and they're all filmed like this, they kind of, save for maybe 1 or 2 fights in the movie, they lose their impact. Which maybe it could have been the point, that the fights, in the ring weren't what was important. It was the fights out of the ring. And maybe on another viewing, I'll kind of acclimate to that. But as somebody who, enjoys combat sports, I enjoy movies about combat sports, I felt that the fights themselves were a little bit lacking. Because there's a way to frame up early MMA, even though it was a little bit messier than modern MMA, to make it impactful, make it thrilling, and it just didn't do that for me. Now, while I had some issues, and there are definitely some things about the film I think could have been done better, it still was a very, very breezy 2 hours. Didn't feel like I was sitting there forever. It runs at a good clip. I really enjoyed a lot of the performances, and I'm giving the movie a 3 out of 5.